Okay, you know the drill. You're at the doctor's office, and they hand you that little plastic cup. We've all been there. It's got to be one of the most common medical tests on the planet. But what does it all mean? Well, today we're going to crack the code of urinalysis. I mean, really, have you ever stopped to think about it? It seems so simple, but that little sample is about to go on a pretty incredible journey. Think of it like a full-blown investigation into the inner workings of your body, and we're going to follow that journey every single step of the way. And that's what makes it so amazing. You know, without a single needle, no incision, this one simple test gives doctors a huge amount of data. It's almost like a liquid diary, recording all these little clues about your diet, your hydration levels, and the health of your kidneys, your liver, the whole shebang. All right, so the investigation kicks off the second that sample is collected, and it starts with a physical examination. This is some real old-school detective work, you know? Just using sight and smell to gather those very first crucial clues.
You'd be amazed what color alone can tell us. That pale yellow, that's what we're looking for. That's normal. But as you can see here, if it's dark amber, it probably just means you need to drink more water. But then you get into things like red or brown. That could signal something more serious is going on, like blood or maybe bile pigments from the liver, or even something called myoglobin, which is a protein released from a muscle injury. All of these are big clues that need a closer look.
So beyond color, we've got clarity and odor. Is it clear or is it kind of cloudy? If it's cloudy, that can mean bacteria or little crystals are floating around in there. And the smell, well, it tells its own story. A really foul odor often points right to a UTI, but a distinctly sweet or fruity smell, that's a classic clue for something called ketones, which can be a sign of diabetes. Okay, so the visual exam gives us our first leads, but now it's time to bring out the high-tech gear. We're heading into the lab for a chemical deep dive, looking for evidence that's completely invisible to the naked eye. So our first target is glucose, sugar. Now, normally, your kidneys are really good at their job. They keep all the sugar in your blood where it belongs, not in your urine. So if we find it here, well, that's a major red flag that the whole system might be overloaded. And one of the classic ways to find it is with something called the Benedict's test. It's actually a pretty simple but really elegant procedure. You add a chemical, this Benedict's reagent, to the urine, and then you just gently heat it up. If there's any sugar in there, it's going to react and cause this really dramatic color change. And boom, here's the payoff. The solution starts out blue. If it stays blue, you're all clear, no sugar. But if it starts to turn green, yellow, orange, or a deep brick red, we've got a positive hit. The warmer the color gets, the higher the sugar concentration, and that's a key indicator for conditions like diabetes. All right, next up on our list of hidden evidence, protein. You know, just like sugar, protein is one of those things that's supposed to stay in your blood. When it starts leaking out into the urine, that condition is called proteinuria, and it's telling us something really important about the kidneys. And the test for protein is another one of those straightforward but really effective procedures. First, you gently heat just the top part of the urine sample. If protein is there, it'll clump together and turn cloudy. But wait a minute, other things like phosphates can also make it cloudy. And that's where the acetic acid comes in. It dissolves those phosphates, but it leaves the protein behind. Pretty clever, right? The key word here is persists. If that cloudiness is still hanging around after adding the acid, it confirms proteinuria. See, your kidneys act like this super fine filter for your body. So finding protein here is a pretty big sign that the filter might be damaged or under a lot of stress, and it's letting these big protein molecules slip through. And for our third and final chemical clue, we've got the ketone test. Now, remember that sweet, fruity odor we talked about earlier? This is where we confirm exactly what's causing it. So what even are ketones? Well, they're basically byproducts of fat metabolism. Your body makes them when it runs out of its preferred fuel, sugar or glucose, and it has to start burning fat for energy instead. This can happen during starvation, if you're on a really strict low-carb diet, or in cases of uncontrolled diabetes, which can lead to a really serious condition called diabetic ketoacidosis. And Rothera's test gives us another one of these awesome, clear-cut visual results. After adding the chemicals, you're looking for a reaction right where the layers of the liquid meet. If you see this purple ring appear, that's a positive test. It's a definite confirmation that ketones are present. So, we've analyzed the sample with our eyes, our noses, and with chemicals. But now, it's time for the final, most detailed phase of this whole investigation. We are putting a single drop of urine sediment under the microscope. This is where things get really fascinating. We're about to see the individual actors in this story, the cells, the crystals, all these other little bits and pieces that tell the most specific stories about what is really happening inside the urinary tract. First up, red blood cells. Now, seeing a few is totally normal, maybe up to 4 in a high-power field of view. But when you start seeing a whole lot more than that, it's a really clear sign of bleeding somewhere along the urinary tract. It could be from a kidney stone, an infection, or another problem with the kidneys or bladder. And the same exact principle applies to white blood cells, which are basically the soldiers of our immune system. Again, seeing a few is fine. Up to 5 is usually considered normal. But a high count of white blood cells, that strongly suggests your body is in the middle of a fight, battling an infection or inflammation, most likely a UTI. And believe me, there's so much more to find. The lab techs are looking for things called casts, which are these little tube-shaped molds from inside the kidneys that can point to kidney disease. They're identifying different kinds of crystals that could be forming into kidney stones. They can literally see the bacteria that are causing a UTI. Even the cells that line your urinary tract get checked out. It is a whole universe of clues in there. Okay, the investigation is officially complete. We have gathered all the visual evidence, the chemical evidence, and the microscopic evidence. So now, let's put it all together and see what the final verdict is. I mean, think about the journey we just followed. We started with just a simple look and smell. Then we moved through a series of chemical reactions to uncover these hidden substances, and we ended with a microscopic deep dive to count individual cells. Every single step built on the last one. And that is the real secret of urinalysis. That simple little cup provides this incredibly comprehensive, totally non-invasive report card on your health. It's such a powerful tool that turns something so routine into a detailed story about what's really happening inside you. So, next time you're handed that cup, you'll know it's not just a sample, it's a window into your well-being.